Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a little bit of lunch at the same time as well. Thanks for coming on. So yes, I'm just going to take you through as Ian moves through the deck a couple of slides that we're going to have a look at before we get into the actual processes themselves. If you can move us on, Ian. I will first of all take you through. Now, this is in much more detail. So Ian will post shortly a link to the Platform for Rugby YouTube playlist, and in particular to a webinar that we held at the end of April, which talks about the levels and player eligibility and registration types in a lot more detail. But I will cover them here for context this afternoon. I'm going to say this evening, but it's the first afternoon one that we've done so far. And then so we're going to have a look at two registration types. So we're going to have two registration types largely in the Role of Adult Player Registration. And what you'll see there is a little bit of a staggered black line. And I'll go through that with you now. So all players will be required to do the same initial registration process. And when we say all players, we do mean all players, even though we don't explicitly mention men's championship and men's premiership on the left-hand side of that graph. Left-hand side of that table. Every single player will be going through what's called the initial club registration process, which Ian and Ollie will take you through shortly in terms of what that looks like. And for those players who are only going to play the highest level, for want of a better word, of National Challenge 2 Level 5 in the women's game and Counties 3 Level 9 in the men's game, then that will be the only registration type that they will need to do. And when we say below those levels, we mean everything below that, right from Counties 3, 4, 5, as you can see on the graphic there, right down to CB Cup competition, competitions, if I can say that. Men's Merits, Inner Warrior Series for women, all of those types of competitions and playing opportunities underneath those levels. Club registration is the only registration type that players will need to do to be eligible to play. For those players and for those clubs then wanting players to be eligible to play above that black staggered line in effect. So that would be in the women's game from National Challenge 1, Level 4 and above, and for men's Counties 2 Level 8 and above, the registrar will complete some additional steps, which Ollie will take you through shortly, that will essentially convert that club registration into an RFU registration type and will make those players eligible to be playing at those levels. A couple of other little features to mention, in particular, those players that remain at club registered or club registration level, they will have the ability to register and play for two clubs at any one time. So that could be any clubs that they wish, providing that both clubs and teams within those clubs that they play remain below that line. So an example could be you could have a player playing National Challenge 2 in the women's game. They could also register for another National Challenge 2 side and an OWL, an NC3 side as well. If they then wanted to be eligible to play NC1, National Challenge 1, then the registrar would essentially convert that club registration into an RFU registration, and then that player's eligibility would be back with one club only. And again, Ollie will be taking you through that shortly. The final thing to say on club registration is that there'll be a retrospective registration option, and that is afforded to those at that club registration level, so below that black line. And we recognise that games in these types of levels, players can become available late in the day. So it's really important that they, do their activate stuff, get ready, physically prepared and able to play, and then they will be able to register post-match by 12 noon the following Tuesday, just to better meet the needs of those levels of the game. But if you do want more detailed information on these levels and player eligibility types and player journeys, then do have a look at that YouTube link that Ian has put into the chat for a little bit more information. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to have a look at account creation. So that is GMS account creation. And then just to touch on that slightly, really important to note actually that any player that is currently registered or indeed has been registered and may now be inactive since at least 2004, they will by default already have a GMS account. So to be able to register when we go live, then the they will not need to create a new account, but will need to interact with an existing one. And many of you may have already seen the work that we've been doing and supporting the game with on that since early February around player email verification. And that's essentially what we're asking clubs to support their players to do, is to verify their email address and their GMS account, which will enable them and allow them to be able to register once we go live next month. Ollie and Ian will be covering the player registration processes. So that initial player registration, club registration level process I talked about earlier. They'll then show you how that is converted and uplifted into an RFU registration where that player needs that kind of a registration. We'll be touching upon expedited registration. So some of you may be familiar with that. It's around how to quicken up the process on an RFU registration. We'll also be looking at transfers, loans, and for the first time, if you weren't on last night, we're going to have a little bit of a look around how we do cancel and extend loans. And then towards the very end, Ian will come back in and talk to us around the resources that are in place to support the rollout in the game. And the last thing I'll do just before I hand you over to Ian and Ollie to do the technical walkthrough is we have the Q&A function available today. So you'll be able to see there on your toolbar, hopefully for Zoom, if you want to put questions in there. Now, last night we had some great engagement on this, and we had literally dozens, if not more, questions, and sadly weren't able to get through them all. We will try and get through as many as we possibly can. All of them will definitely be read. So if we're not able to answer them tonight, then we will try to include it in our ongoing communications and messaging to you in the near future. So please do put your questions into the Q&A function and we'll get through as many as we can. In the meantime, I'll hand back over to Ian, who will start to take you through the technological processes. Ian.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. I just saw some questions there, a couple of questions coming in just around recording and when we're sharing links. So everyone who has registered for this session will be emailed a link once the recording is on the Platform for Rugby YouTube channel. All right. So you'll be able to share to other club members, etc. Cool. So I'm going to take you through the first half of the session today, and we're going to kick off with account creation. So this would be for any players that are currently not registered to play in the RFU league structure, or that they don't have a GMS account. So we'll go through this, and probably the first thing to note is those of you, the administrators that are familiar with the game management system, will notice that the look and feel, the colours are different, and you'll see that as we move forward, because we've done a bit of work to improve that aspect to align with England Rugby branding and just to improve that interface and user experience. So you'll see this. The other bit just to highlight now is that you're going to look at images that are in desktop version, but everything that we have created has been mobile optimized, so and tested in both ways, so it's fully functional for this process. Cool. So first things first, I'm in a Sales Sharks here. I need to create a new account, so I'm going to click create new account. This just takes you to a simple form, that is very similar to most online forms. You input your details, your address, and you basically can click next in the top right or at the bottom. The reason why there's a next at the bottom of the screen is in mobile, when you're scrolling, it's easy just to click next at the bottom. All right. You then input your credentials. So same sort of password process for most online systems, exactly the same. Input your password. You'll see there's some privacy notices there around editing your communication preferences, and there are some required waivers that you are required to tick in terms of login terms and conditions and GMS terms and conditions of use, and then you would simply press next. That's your account created, and you will land on your personal dashboard. So again, those familiar with GMS will notice that this is different to what you can currently experience. And you'll notice that there are a number of places where it's really highlighted around registering to play. two in particular. One in the middle, which is where the notifications will land for an individual. And then quick links on the far right-hand side. You'll notice there that you can register a player. At the top, we've got a scrolling banner, which will highlight various different calls to action that you can do. And you can see a difference there in terms of your profile. So the tabs at the top where we've got Samwise, that's him. If we wanted to add another individual, family member, etc., then you'd simply click add on there. You'll see that Sales Sharks is already highlighted as my club. So this will show in this way if what we've done is you'll be able to send a QR code for your club or a link to your club that will direct a player to your club straight away. So if they do that, then the organization may show. If they're logging in and they're already connected to your organization, then it will show. But if there's nothing there, they will need to add the organization. So to do that, they would simply click on add in the top, in that left hand corner, and you'll see on the right hand side it pulls out a panel. And I'm, as an example, searching for a club here. So I've searched for Chichester. It brings up all the organisations within Chichester, and you'll see that in the blue outline there further down the screen, we've selected Chichester RFC. So as an example, that's how you would search for your organisation. So whether that's a club, university, etc. In this example, we're going to stick with Sales Sharks. So we've got Sales Sharks as our organisation, and we're going to register the player. So we've created Samwise Gamgee, our test account, and we're now going to register them to play. One of the things that we have done is we went across the country to do some player usability testing, and we tested this with all levels of the game and sought their feedback, and we've been able to take on board that feedback and implement the changes. So you'll see here, really simple form, very similar to most online registration forms that you need to complete, except it's relevant for rugby. I would simply add in my playing position. So whether that's, you've got three options there: front row, backs, or forwards. And then I would select my medical conditions. Do I have any conditions to declare? Yes or no. Emergency contact information. So I've just input information in there. And tick the required waivers around consent to photo distribution, emergency detail distribution, and consent medical distribution. And then the email address, because I've already created an account, and the phone and the address are pre-populated, so that's already done. And I have the option to submit at the bottom of the screen, because most players will be doing this on mobile, so they'll just be able to scroll down, click that, or there is the option in the top right as well. I select that, and that's my player registration requested. That registration is now pending approval by the club. So when I log back into my dashboard and I click that continue button, you will see that that t-shirt in the middle there is highlighted as amber, and shows that I am pending. So my player registration is pending until a registrar at the club approves that registration. That will turn to green once they have. I'm going to keep moving forward. So approving a club registration. So in this example, I am the Sales Sharks Adult Male Registrar. So you will need to approve club registrations. You will need to be assigned the role in GMS of an Adult Male Registrar or an Adult Female Registrar. A club can have multiple registrars. You can't just have one. You don't just have to have one. You can have multiple. So multiple people in your club can be assigned these. And this is my personal dashboard as an adult male registrar, and you'll see on the right hand side there that red box around it. I've got a pending players box, and it's showing pending senior men's registrations, women's registrations, and in this example, we can see age grade registrations as well. So you'll be able to click through around your senior men's registrations. That's where you go, and it will drive you straight to those people that have pending senior men's registrations. So we can do it that way, or the other way we can do it is if you head to that waffle, which is in the top left-hand corner, you can select that and click on player management. So the good news for any registrars on the call is that the player registration V12 module will not exist anymore. And what we have created is the player management module, and everything will be within GMS. So that's reducing you time in terms of the amount of clicks you have to do, clicking out from different places. It's a much more streamlined, improved process, which has been really good to be able to implement that. So we select player management, and this brings you through to this registration overview dashboard within player management. So this is a new screen. It's not available yet, but will be when we go live with it. And what you can see is 3 columns, and the 3 columns from left to right show the registrations for senior men, senior women, and then age grade. Within this, you can then see your players that are club registered, your players that are RFU registered, and then the status of those registrations. So what we've just done is what all players will need to do, which is a club registration. They will need to do that, and you will see that as the Samwise Gamgee that we've just created has gone into pending registrations. So we can click through here, and we'll see that Samwise Gamgee is in the list. And the thing to note there is the status of that player shows it's pending, and you've got that amber mark there that shows that player is pending. I can select, so you see the tick box on the left-hand side. I can select all those players, or I can select the individual and then approve them, or I can select the individual. So we're going to select Sam, and we can just see in here, we can check that they've inputted the right details, essentially. So we can check that the player has inputted the correct details that we were expecting in terms of date of birth, etc., where they live, and we can check all those details, emergency contacts. A thing to note with a club registration, is that it is valid from when you approve it. So when you approve that registration, it is valid that day. So in this example, it's showing the 10th of June. So if it was today, the 25th of June, then we approve that registration today, then that would be approved from, they would be club registered from then. So I've selected Samwise Gamgee now on the left-hand side, and you'll see on the right-hand side, it's come up with some options. So those options being approve registration or reject registration. So I've got the option to reject if, it's someone we don't want at the club, or there's any issues. And there's some options that you can say as to why it's been rejected. And then in terms of approving, it's a simple click. So that process there has reduced from 16 clicks to 3 clicks. So 3 clicks to approve a player. So hopefully saving you a bit of time there. You'll see they've disappeared from that list because we've just approved them. And if we head back to our dashboard, so on the top left there, we can head back, and it takes us through back to that registration overview dashboard. And you'll now see that under approved registrations, if we click through onto that list, you'll see that Samwise Gamgee is an active status player now within that list. So it's as simple as that to do club registration. Now, one thing I'm going to show you now is around deregistering and adding a club. So if you are men's level 9, so if your club play men's level 9 and below, or women's level 5 players below, they have the additional benefit of qualifying for multi-club registration, which allows the player to hold 2 simultaneous registrations. So I'm just going to show you what that would look like as an example in the system. So I'm logged in as Johnny Rugby, and apologies for the zoomed inness on this, but I wanted you to see this nice and clear. But I'm logged in as Johnny Rugby, and you'll see on the right-hand side under quick links, I've got a deregister option. You'll also see on the left-hand side, I've got two organisations, which are two clubs, Christchurch and Whittington. You'll also see that the little T-shirt sign is green. That denotes that playing status is an active player. You'll also see that because I'm selected on Christchurch, you'll see that in the middle where it says active player with the green T-shirt. So if I select deregister, because you can only have two simultaneous club registrations, and let's say I want to go and play for my other club, Timeless Testers, because they're short of players and I haven't played for them in a while. My mate's playing and they've invited me to go down. So as a player, I'd log in, I'd click deregister from one of my clubs, in this case, Christchurch, and I would then have it be deactivated. So my registration would be, I'd be deregistered from that club, and you'll note that the T-shirt now is greyed out. So you'll see that I only have one active registration, and that is at Whittington. So I want to add another club now because I want to go and play for Timeless Testers. So to do that, I would add that club. I would search for it. So I would pull out that search that I showed you earlier, and I would be able to choose that club and press Timeless Testers. So that will then show on the left-hand side, and you'll see that under quick links, I can register for that player, for that club. And it's really simple because we've already registered for a couple of other clubs. The only bit that's not pre-populated would be the medical notes, which is separate for each registration. So you can declare your conditions in there and simply then click submit to register. You'll see then that my playing status becomes active there. Obviously, that the club registrar would need to approve that club registration for that to become green, but we are assuming in this scenario that they have done so. And then probably just a note as well is if I then decide to go back to play for Christchurch, I would obviously deregister from maybe Timeless Testers. But then if I registered to play at Christchurch, it would automatically approve for that season only. So a club registrar wouldn't need to approve that again if they'd already played for that club that season. So that's just one to note there. That's my section done, and I'm now going to stop sharing my screen, and Ollie is going to take you through the second half of this around applying for RFU registration and the relevant processes around that.
Thanks very much, Ian. Are we all good? Can you see my screen?
We can.
Fab. Hi, everybody. Ollie Norris here. I know quite a few of you on the chat from my time as an RFU registrar. So as a brief introduction, I work in the Legal and Governance Department and have previously worked across RFU registrations for our men's level 1 to 4 competition, so Premiership, Championship and the National Leagues, and also our Women's Premiership as well. So that's why I'm seeing so many familiar names, and nice to see you all. So now the elements I'm going to go through are around, first of all, RFU registration. So RFU registration is the level of registration that's required for any individual that's going to be registered level 8 and above in the men's game and level 4 and above in the women's game. So I think that's the first important piece to clarify. So the piece that Ian's gone through in terms of when a player joins your club initially on a basic club registration, if that individual is looking to play in any of those levels above men level 8 and women level 4, then they will require RFU registration. So if we just go through the steps, what you'd need to do to basically uplift or upgrade that player's registration. You can see here we're in Sale Sharks' account as a Premiership club, and we're in their player management module, and we've got the registration overview dashboard here. So we can see in that left-hand column we've got senior men registrations, and we can see a number of approved club registrations. So if we click into there, we can see that the player that Ian's just been talking us through, Samwise, is there and showing as club registered with Sale Sharks. So I know Sale Sharks being a Premiership club, so level 1 in the men's game, in order to play for our senior team, that he's going to require an RFU registration. So if I click on the left-hand column where that red tick is appearing, I'll then get the options to uplift Samwise's registration. And we can see in the top right-hand column, you can submit an RFU registration. So what I'll do is I'll click on that button, and this side panel will appear from the right. So you'll see there's a number of familiar tabs in there in terms of usually the top 5 or 6 tabs there are what is the information that's submitted as part of the club registration, and the bottom 3 tabs mainly relate to the RFU registration. So if we click into, say, the initial player name and address details for the player, you can see all of that information is already pre-populated for you when the player is club registered with your club, and that's all pulled through for you already. So that's hopefully a helpful start when submitting an RFU registration for a player. If we then just go back and look at the RFU registration form, you can see, like I said, basically below that red line there, those 3 tabs are the main tabs that we're interested in for an RFU registration. So if we look at the first one, player nationality and EQP application, it's probably important to stress here that the level of RFU registration in terms of the information that's required to be input and, say, the number of fields that appear here is very much based on the level that your club plays at. So given Sale Sharks play in the Premiership, we require an extensive amount of information from them. And say if you're playing at Regional 1 or 2, when you go to submit an RFU registration, some of these boxes won't be there, and you won't be required to submit information relating to that, just because it's not relevant to the competition regulations for your division. So we can see here there's the Sale Sharks need to complete country of birth. So if you click on the country of birth, there's a drop-down list, so you can select that for your player. Then you can select a player code. So this relates to the type of passport that the player you're registering may hold. And again, then we've got player category, which again relates to the type of passport or visa that an individual may hold. Now, again, just need to stress that that's obviously most relevant for men's level 1 to 4 and women's level 1, just based on the requirements we've been set by the Home Office for individuals' eligibility to register and play at these levels. This next section, just below the country of birth and passport categories, EQP application. EQP stands for England Qualified Player. So we collect data around our England qualified players from the Premiership, Championship on the men's side, and then also Premiership Women's Rugby. So as Sale Sharks are in the Premiership, as we know, they'll have to go in there and input information around the player's EQP status, whether they're eligible by birth, ancestry, residency, or a consecutive period of playing rugby within England. And then also just below there, the international eligibility piece. That's another data set of data that we collect from our Premiership, Championship and Premiership women's clubs, just to understand where individuals are able to play globally in terms of the nations they're able to represent. So, like I said, this information will vary when submitting an RFU registration based on the level of your club. So that is as extensive as the information collection will be. And then if we just click through to the next section, so the player contract and agent declaration, you can see here again, there's a number of boxes that will be required for you to complete if your player is contracted. So if you've got the initial tick box there, amateur or contracted, if you select contracted, a set of contract information boxes will appear, and you'll be required to input the details relating to that player's contract with you at your club. And then the lower section there, again, you'll just need to confirm whether an agent has been involved or not involved. And if an agent has been involved, you can enter the agent's name again from a drop-down list in that lower section and add any agent details relating to the player's contract. So again, I must stress, this is obviously the kind of top end and most extensive level of information we'll collect, and it will vary depending on the level you play at in terms of what's required for an RFU registration. But it's good for you to see absolutely everything. So if we then just click through to the final piece, we've got the player identification document. So in this scenario where we've got players who need to prove their right to live and work in the UK, they may need to attach a copy of their passport and visa, and then the birth certificate element from the player, their parent or grandparent, relates to the England qualified player status that we discussed earlier. So that those are the sorts of things that can be attached to a player's profile. I think what's important to note is you're not able to attach these for the player at this stage. So the player can go onto their account, log into GMS and add these pieces to their account for you. But if you get to submitting an RFU registration and they haven't submitted that information or attached those documents, what we can do is we can click save on this RFU registration and go back out into this list here. And in the third column along, we can see Samwise's RFU ID. If you click on the RFU ID of Samwise, you can go into his account and add any missing attachments that you may need to attach in relation to his registration with you. So whether that's, like we said, a passport, a visa, a contract, any relevant information, that is the way you would do it. So you just need to click save, come back out, go into the player's profile specifically, and add the relevant attachments that you need to. Once you've done that and you're comfortable with the information you've input for the RFU registration, and it's got all of the attachments on it that you require, you can click that Submit RFU Registration button again in the top right-hand corner. That will again open up the registration form for you. You can again just check all the information that you've input, make sure you're comfortable, and once you are, you can then click Submit in the top right-hand corner. So let's submit an RFU registration for Samwise, and you will now see that on our club registered players list, he has dropped off of that list. So if we return to our registration overview dashboard, just clicking here in the top left-hand corner, we're back here and we can go back into our senior men's column on the left-hand side there. And he's now entered the RFU registered line of approval. So we can see, because no agent was involved when registering or contracting this player, it's moved beyond the agent and gone straight to the player to approve. So if we click onto awaiting player approval, we can see in here that we've got a player that is awaiting RFU registration, or we're awaiting the player to sign off on their RFU registration. But we can also see at this stage in the top right-hand corner, there's the ability to expedite the registration. So once you complete all the information in the RFU registration, click submit. At that point, if you need to expedite the player, so that means make them available to you within 24 hours rather than the standard 7-day waiting period, you can click expedite registration. So if you click on that expedite registration, it will now take you through to our payment gateway, and we've got a direct payment link. So what you can do is, if you have a club card or a card of your own, you can input the details and make payment to expedite the player. And like I said, once it's gone through the various lines of approval, we can make that player registered with you within 24 hours. So if we just go back now to awaiting player approval, and we can see that Samwise is in there. He's awaiting player approval. So what we can now do is log in as the player to see what they're going to see in order to approve their RFU registration. So we can see we're back now logged into Samwise's GMS account. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that he's received a notification. So the players will be notified by email as well. So they'll be notified by email and encouraged to log into GMS to approve this notification. So they'll click the email link, log into GMS, and then be able to click on this notification, and it will then open their RFU registration form for them on the right-hand side. So what the player can now do is review all of the details that you've input as part of the RFU registration. You can see that everything's grayed out, so they don't have the ability to amend the information at this stage. They can just review it and hopefully approve it. But if they're unsure on any of the information that you've submitted or disagree with it, they of course have the ability to reject it and send it back to you to amend the information and resubmit the registration. But the player's going to click through all of this information, happy with their player nationality information, happy with their contract and agent information, And once they've reviewed it, they can just click approve. So they will click approve, and you'll see now on Samwise's account, again, that bottom right-hand side, just down here, the notification has now dropped away and is now empty, and they have approved their part of the RFU registration. So we're now with me. So we're now going to just show you what it looks like, I suppose, from the RFU's perspective, once it's gone through the various approval process. So you as a club registrar have submitted it, the player has signed off on their application, and it now comes through to me or one of the lucky RFU registrars to review and approve. So I've got my own set of notifications, and I can see that Sale Sharks is going to fall into this category for me, a level 1 to 4 RFU registration. So if I click in there, I can see Samwise is now there for me to review. So if I click on his application, all of the information that you've submitted comes up, so I can review that, make sure that I'm content with the information that's been submitted and that nothing's missing from the application. All of the relevant documentation has been submitted and we're comfortable with that. So once I've reviewed that and I'm happy the player's eligible and able to register with this club, I can go into the registration details section and update the player's effective from date, whether based on whether this registration has been expedited or not. So I can set it immediately or within 7 waiting days. And I can also update anything there around whether the individual is an academy player or an England qualified player, etc., etc. So once I'm happy with that, I can do my part, and in the top right-hand corner there, just click approve the application. So I can approve Samwise's RFU registration. If we then go back to Sale Sharks, so Sale Sharks is the applicant club for the player, we're back in the player management module and in our registration overview dashboard. I can see in here now, we've got a new pending registration. So if I click on a pending registration, I can see in here that we've got Samwise and he's been approved and he is active and ready to go from an RFU registration perspective. So that is it in terms of uplifting a player from to RFU registration status. We're now going to move on to transfers. Hopefully that's okay. Ian or Matt, just let me know if there's any questions or points.
Yeah, just one quick one, Ollie, just to quickly confirm. Just from Peter Flack, does a level 4 club need to enter EQP info, or is that just for levels 1 and 2?
Just for levels 1 and 2, Peter. So that's perfect. Thank you. Anything
Cheers,
else?
Ollie. No, all good. Happy to.
Okay, cool. No, I'll carry on then. And I think so. Transfers is a bit of a new term, new terminology coming in from next season. But what a transfer is basically when you're registering a player that is already registered with another club in England. So I'd say this is actually the primary level or number of registration or kind of type of registration that you would be doing. Ordinarily, we see players who already have a GMS account and are registered with a club moving to a new club, either over a pre-season period or within the season. So this is the scenario we're now going to go through in terms of when you want to transfer a player into your club. So you want them to join your club from another club. So we're now logged in as Dudley Kings Winford. So we're just on their Club Registrars GMS login page or the initial page they come to, their homepage. And if we go to the top left-hand corner, the 9 dots, 9 square icon, we can see in there we've got the player management module. So that's the one I want to go into. So we'll click on player management. That will then take us to our registration overview dashboard where you can track all of your registrations, see which players have club registration, RFU registration. And like we said, we're now going through the transfer scenario. So when you're looking to register a player from another club. So what you would do is you would go into this transfers tab, you'd click on transfers, and we can now see we can see that Dudley Kings Winford haven't transferred any players into their club for this season thus far. So what we can do in the top right hand corner, we've got request transfer. So we can click to request a transfer, and that will open this search function for you. So what we can then do is input the first name, last name, and date of birth of a player that we're looking to bring into the club. You can input those details, so Samwise from the player that we just RFU registered with Sale Sharks, search for the player, and we get Samwise returned in our search function. So all I need to do there is just click on Samwise's name there, and that will then initiate a transfer for Samwise. So we can see here that the status is currently pending for the player, and the player's registration will become valid with us in 7 days' time, on the 17th of June, unless it is approved by their current club prior to that. So unless it's approved by Sale Sharks sooner than the 7 days. So what we'll do is we'll log in again as Sale Sharks Registrar, and we can see once they've logged into GMS on their landing page, they've got some notifications down there in the right-hand side. So they would have also received an email notification, which is likely why they would have logged in to check their notifications within GMS. And you can see there, the bottom one, there's been a transfer request related to a male player. So if we click on that notification, we can see the transfer request has come through for Samwise Ganji, and we can see that the club that's requesting it is Dudley Kings Winford. So if we click on that transfer request as the player's current club, we'll see that again the transfer details just open up on the right-hand side, and if we're happy with the player leaving and moving to the new club, we can simply click approve. If we're not happy, you can obviously click reject, but you'll need to enter a rejection reason, and it will have to be one of the ones related to RFU Regulation 14.44. So the limited scope in terms of not permitting the release of a player to join and register with a new club. So I think in this scenario, we're happy for Samwise to join Dudley Kings Winford. So Sale Shark will approve that transfer, and they'll see that Samwise, that notification with regards to Samwise's transfer has dropped away. So what we can do, this is just identifying that notifications that down here in the bottom right-hand corner, the transfer notification has now gone away, seeing as we've approved it. So what we'll do is we'll log back in as Dudley Kings Winford, who would have been notified when the player's transfer has been approved by their current club. So we'll log back in as Dudley Kings Winford, and again, top left-hand corner, the 9-dot icon, we can go into the player management module. And we're back in here now in the registration overview dashboard. And what we can do is we can go to our transfers tab specifically. So we can click on transfers, and we can now see that Samwise has now entered the club with a club registration. So he's got club registered status, and he is valid immediately because Sale Sharks approved the player's transfer immediately. So that is good news. I think it's also important to note here, if you've received notification that Samwise's transfer has been approved, if you also go back to your registration overview dashboard, you can click in here, so approved registrations under the club registered. If you were to click on this, that would then also show you your list of club registered players, and you'd be able to find Samwise in there as well. So good news is Samwise has now entered our club, but he's entered with club registered status. So given Dudley Kings Winford play their senior team play at a level that requires RFU registration, we're therefore going to need to uplift this player's registration status now to RFU registration level. So if we again click on that tick on the far left-hand column, we've got the options now for Samwise, and we can see submit RFU registration in the top right-hand corner. So if we click on that, this is hopefully a little bit familiar now. The RFU registration form pops out from the right-hand side, and you can begin to populate all of the missing information that's required to submit an RFU registration. So we know that the player nationality information is the information that we'll need to input for the player. So we can input that information for the individual. If the player is contracted or amateur, we can confirm that. If contracted, provide the contract information relating to that individual. And then we've also got the agent declaration piece around the bottom that we can click and confirm whether an agent was involved when we contracted the player to join our club. So once we've done that information, we can also check on the player's attachment identification document. Again, like we said, if we're not happy or there's information missing in terms of attachments missing for this individual, we can click save in the top right hand corner there and go back and click on the individual's RFU ID and add any relevant attachments to the application. So once we've clicked submit on Samwise's RFU registration, again, the player will receive an email and they'll be probed to log into their GMS account to basically approve their RFU registration with their new club, Dudley Kings Winford. And what we'll see once they log in, again, in the notifications section in the bottom right-hand corner, they'll see they've got a notification for a contract approval for their review. So if they click on that, their RFU registration form will pop out from the right. And again, they'll be able to review all of the details that's been input as part of their RFU registration, but thankfully, probably from a club registrar perspective, not be able to amend any of the details, but they can review it. And if they're happy, they can approve their RFU registration. Again, we're now at the final stage where you as a club have submitted an RFU registration. The player has signed off on the updated registration status and all of the additional information, and it's come to me as an RFU registrar to approve. So I'll be in my notifications tab and I'll click in there and see that I've now got an RFU registration to approve for Samwise with Dudley Kings Winford. So if I do my piece and click onto the RFU registration application, I can again go through all of this information and review what's been input from yourselves as club registrars, and also see that the player has signed off and confirmed this information. So I can review this and then do my bit in terms of approving the individual's registration. So I can amend or determine their effective date based on whether the player registration has been expedited or not, and also input any other relevant fields for an individual. Once I'm happy that the player is eligible to register with Dudley Kings Winford, I can click approve on that. So I'll click approve, and Samwise is now dropped off of my notifications as an RFU registrar. So Dudley Kings Winford will now receive a notification in the form of an email that will say that Samwise's RFU registration has been approved by an RFU registrar. So what we can do is we'll log back in as Dudley Kings Winford here, top left-hand corner to the 9 dotted icon and click on Player Management module. We go into the Player Management and we're back in the Registration Overview dashboard. We can now look for the player. If we click on the Transfers tab, we can now see that Samwise, he has now got RFU registration type. He is RFU registered and he is valid from immediate effect because his status is active. So he's now showing us fully actively RFU registered with us as the new club. So hopefully that was okay. I'll pause for a breath, pause for a quick drink. Ian, I don't know if any other questions have come up that's worth mentioning at this stage.
Yeah, just around transfers and can you expedite transfers? That's come up a couple of times. Can you go through that?
So you can't expedite a transfer in terms of the transfer is initiated, and a player's current club always has 7 days to approve or reject the transfer of a player. So if they approve it, then the player will automatically come over to you as RFU registered. If they choose not to approve or reject it, and they just let the 7 days run for that individual's registration, once those 7 days have passed, the player will then come over to you as club registered. So hopefully that clarifies that. And then, and obviously once the player's then transferred in, if they require RFU registration, you can look to do that. You can look to uplift their registration. So
thanks, Ollie. Nice one.
Okay, bro. I'll move on to loans now. So we're back in here now with a new club, so Northern FC, logged in as a club registrar into their GMS account. So Northern FC wants to loan a player So top left-hand corner, 9-dot icon, and let's go into our player management module. We click into here, we can now see on our dashboard here, specifically on the left-hand side, we've got a loaned in tab. So what we can do is, if we're looking to loan a player in, we know we can click on here, loaned in, and you can see once we're here, we've currently got no players in on loan, but we can see in the top right-hand corner, we can request the loan for a player. So if we click request new loan, we'll then get our search function. So what we can do with the search function is we can type in the name of the player. So first name, last name, date of birth, hit search, and it will return the player we're looking for. So we search for Frodo Baggins here, who we can see is currently registered with Harlequins. And if we want to request a new loan for that individual, we can click on their name. And what that will then do is provide you with the opportunity to input the valid from and valid to date for a loan. So you can enter the dates for when you would like to loan the player. So you can enter the start date and the end date. And once you're happy with that, in the top right-hand corner, you can click submit on the loan application. So if we submit a loan application for Frodo Baggins, we can now see here in our loaned in tab that the status is awaiting club approval. So we know that the loan application is now with Harlequins to sign off and approve. So if we log in as a Harlequins club registrar, we've received a notification via email saying that a club is looking to loan Frodo Baggins. So we've logged into GMS and we can see in the bottom right-hand corner here, we've got our notifications tab. So down here, we can see that there's a loan approval for male level 5 to 8. So if we click on that notification to approve, it will bring us through to here, and we can see there's been a loan request from Northern FC for Frodo Baggins. So if we click on that loan request, the information will pull out from the right, and we can check that we're happy that the player, where the player's going on loan and the dates they're going on loan for, and we can approve or reject that request. If we're rejecting, you'll be required to input a rejection note as to why you're rejecting the loan. In this example, we're happy with the player going out on loan, so we'll approve the loan request. So that's been approved, and now that will come through to the RFU registrations team to review and approve. So logged in as me again in GMS, we can go to the notifications tab down in the bottom right-hand corner for me, and I can see there's a loan approval there. So what I can do is click on loan approval, and I can see I've got a loan application to review. So if I click on loan request for Frodo Baggins, I can see all of the information here, and I can look to approve and amend the valid from and valid to date if required. But I can review the information, make sure the player is eligible to go on loan to a club at that level, and if I'm content, I can approve the valid from date for and the loan for this individual. So I've clicked the RFU's approved that loan application. As the applicant club, Northern FC will now receive a notification via email that the loan has been approved by all parties. So what Northern FC would do is go back into their player management module, and in their loaned in tab on the left-hand side, they can see there that Frodo Baggins, the loan's been approved, but the status is showing as pending. So because they set the loan date to start in 7 days' time, the player is still showing as pending until we achieve that valid from date. So if Northern FC want to have that player become available for them sooner than expected, or say within 24 hours, they can click on the left-hand column, click the red tick, and they can request to either expedite the loan and make the player available immediately, or they can request an extension of the loan. So they can request for the final date of the loan period to be extended. So hopefully that is helpful for everyone. I think we just go into a little bit more detail here around extending a loan. So when you want to extend the loan, what you can do, or what is ordinarily done, is you would email your RFU registrar. So you would either email Bob Morrison or one of the internal RFU registrars with the relevant details that you would like to, in terms of extend the loan for the player, and we can then go into the player's club account and we can change the valid to date on the loan, so we can extend the loan for you. Or likewise, as the applicant club, you can go in there and amend the valid to date yourself and submit an extension for a loan for that player. In terms of cancelling a loan, a bit like I said around the requesting a loan extension, what you would do is you would email your RFU registrar, either Bob Morrison or one of the internal RFU registrars, and as the parent club, so the individual's current club or their loan club, you can just say, we would like to cancel the loan for this individual, or recall them with immediate effect. And the RFU registrar would be able to come in here and amend the status of the loan and valid to date of the loan and cancel when appropriate, as agreed between the two clubs. So we can see once I've clicked loan cancelled and amended the valid from date, it will then show in the loaned in players tab that the individual's loan has been cancelled. So I think that's it from me. Happy to take any questions now, Ian, if you think, or I'm happy to keep the slide on for you.
No, it's all good. Conscious of time.
Yeah.
So we'll just. There's a lot of information there, and I know a couple of you have said there's a lot of information there, but we have got the resources to support you. So you'll have seen already communications that have gone out regularly over the last almost two seasons around adult player registration now, but certainly a lot since January and this season. So that they will continue as we move forward. So, and look out for some comms going directly to the game soon. You will also have seen that the Community Rugby Help page online. If you haven't, I urge you to check it out, because this is your place. If you're having any GMS technical issues, you can submit a help request. There are many articles around many things to do with rugby where you can find the answer, but there is a specific adult player registration announcement tile on the front page, and everything you need around adult player registration can be found within that section. But if it's a key place to visit or know about, because that's going to help you as we move forward. And as when we go live with this within the system, there will be help articles around all the different processes that we have shown you, so you can just find the right thing that you need at the right time. Alongside this, we're producing how-to video guides, both for players and for administrators, so you can access that via the Platform for Rugby YouTube channel. However, they will also be embedded into some of the key Community Rugby Help articles on adult player registration. So there's a number of places you'll see that. We currently, I have a team of GMS support trainers supporting the game, 6 of them. They primarily deliver online sessions. We have a session to support the game around data, and this first part around getting players to have their emails up to date and verified. But we will also have a session to support administrators around adult player registration, and then dependent on what level club you are, the relevant processes that you will need. So there's a session that will be available when we go live. We also, and some of you may have been contacted by the local RFU delivery team, who have had a number of focus weeks since February onwards, just to support clubs, check in with clubs to make sure they know what they need to do, where they need to go to find resources and support. That will continue as we build forward to the season. And we've got our Platform for Rugby user groups. So all of this has been shared with our Platform for Rugby user group volunteers who are from the game in various different guises, from off-pitch roles to on-pitch roles, and they've been providing good feedback and testing for us to develop the system, and that is ongoing as we move forward into next season. And then you are the last ones for our webinar program for June, but as we go forward, there will be some support session webinars dependent on the level of game that your club is, that will be targeting over over this summer as we build forward to the start of the season. So we will share that information with the game in due course. But key thing to remember is if you're getting stuck on GMS technical things, then you need to submit a help request on Community Rugby Help. And Ollie, if you're able to just flick the screen on for me. The one key thing that you need to make sure that your players are able to do is that they can log in to GMS. So if they're an existing registered player, they will have a GMS account. They may not know they have a GMS account because a club registrar has created that account for them in the past. So as a club administrator, you will be able to share those details with them, check their email addresses up to date, and then you can send them a link from within the system to verify their email address. That will help the login process when players come to register. They will just simply they can simply log into the system. If there are issues, you may find that some of your players may have had an account created but may have gone on and done a coaching course, not realized they've already got an account, so they may have a duplicate account that you as a club administrator can't find that other account. That is where you'll need to submit a ticket to this Community Rugby Help so that they can support you and resolve that swiftly. And obviously, as we're moving into peak season, we have upscaled staff to deal with those queries, so should be getting pretty prompt responses. So do look out for that. We've come to the end of our session today, so thank you so much for giving up your lunchtime to come on the session. It's been really good, loads of questions coming in, which has been really engaging. There will be future comms and FAQs that will be shared with the game accordingly, so do look out for that. Again, this recording will be available on platform for Rugby YouTube channel. Everyone who's registered will get an email when it goes live, and we'll share some of the relevant links that we've been sharing in the chat during this session as well. Thanks for your time and really appreciate you all coming on. Have a great rest of the day.